Hey guys, it's Robin, and you're listening to the Live Life Balance podcast. My heart is full knowing that you're here today, prioritizing you and your wellness. This podcast is for women looking for an authentic, supportive community to learn about wellness from all angles and who want to just feel their best. I'll be your guide, pointing you to ideas and tools that you can experiment with to find what works for you, because we all bring different experiences and knowledge to the table. No pun intended. Health is not a one-size-fits-all. By feeling our best, we're able to show up in our purpose, and that allows us to live the most joyful life, even in the most challenging times. Together, we're going to grow by learning to align ourselves and taking some simple, actionable steps that feel right for you. We're going to talk about self-care. We'll talk about nutrition, daily toxins. We'll talk food swaps. We'll definitely be talking about mindset and reframing our thoughts because it's so important. I hope that you leave today feeling more empowered and at ease. And I hope that you can take one or two small steps to be able to create the you that you want to be. Are you ready for all the possibilities? If you said yes, say, I am ready. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to Live Life Balanced. I am really excited today. I have on my guest Riley, and she is a gut specialist. She goes by the gut pharmacist, which I love, and that's with an F, not a PH. A little bit about Riley. She's not a stranger to chronic illness. She's a remote naturopathic gut coach. And the reason that she got there was because of her own issues. She said that she's been suffering since she was born, and also said she's had pretty much every weird symptom imaginable. So that'll be a little bit of a conversation, because I know a lot of us feel like we have the weirdest symptoms ever. And then kind of through her disappointment is what led her down the path to become a gut specialist, because she wanted to kind of heal herself. So welcome, Riley. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing great. And that was a great introduction. So thank you.
You're welcome. So I like to just really start by having you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, your background, how you kind of got where you are today, because I think that's important for us to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I've suffered, just like you said in the intro, since birth, pretty much on and off. I was a very sick child, very sick teenager, and somewhat of a sick adult, and a lot of healing work on the way. So I've reversed several disorders, including hypothyroidism, GERD, LPR, IBS, dysbiosis, gastritis. I've reversed so many things, hormonal imbalance. The only thing that I haven't been able to reverse yet, I say yet because I do believe in the body's healing potential, is a neurological disorder called cervical dystonia. So if there's going to be a video footage of this, some of the audience might notice my head always turns and my head is quite shaky. So cervical dystonia, cervical being the neck area. So my neck muscles constantly spasm and twitch, and it causes abnormal posture, twisting motions, tremor. It's just a terrible neurological disorder. So there's dystonia, there's generalized, there's also focal, which is what I unfortunately have to deal with in the head area, which is honestly the worst place you could have a tremor. But I've had it for about 13 years now. And most of those years it was pretty mild, but somehow in the last 4 years, it's gotten significantly worse. And I've been doing everything I can, pouring into my healing. So that's been my challenge lately. But I just want to let the audience know that there is hope, because like I listed, I've reversed so many conditions, dozens of conditions, multiple dozens of weird symptoms. So talking about the weird symptoms, I've experienced almost everything except pretty severe things. Of course, no seizures, no heart attacks, nothing like that. And I've never had broken bones. I'm proud to say that. So that's
Yeah.
a pretty common thing. But yeah, I've dealt with so many different symptoms. A lot of weird ones that you usually hear about are the bug crawling sensations, spinal shivers, just random nosebleeds, just so many crazy things. So if you're dealing with mysterious illness and you're not finding answers from the usual medical care, don't give up hope. Unfortunately, that system is designed more so for acute care, not chronic care, and they just don't have the time and the resources to really dig into what's going on with you as an individual. It's just very surface care. And that's unfortunately the system that we're in. But there is the other side. There's naturopathic and functional medicine or approaches if you want to work with some licensed or unlicensed. There's just so many things that we can do to find out what's going on with you, really understanding you as an individual.
Um, well, first of all, I love your story in the fact that we all face challenges, right? There's nobody that's perfect. There's nobody that is without some kind of a health issue throughout their life. And I love how you were saying that you've healed all of these things, yet you still have something that you're working with. And I think the fact that you're working with something challenging and that you provide help to other people suffering with something different, I think is amazing because it not only warrants, the fact that you dig and that you get to the bottom of things and that you are here to help other people, but you're still helping yourself. And I absolutely love that. And I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to continue to keep digging until you find those answers. And just think how amazing that's going to be when you finally do and you can piece together your experience and then you can help somebody else that might be going through something very similar. And I think
Absolutely.
going to the gut health side of things, you can heal so much through the gut. And one of the things, that when I'm working with clients, I like to tell people, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm just curious. I'm not against medicine. I think medicine has its place. I think that obviously surgery has a place, right? I mean, those are things that have to be done medically. So I do believe that those things are necessary, but I don't really feel like should be your first go-to. There's always alternatives to things, and I think people need to, and I think it's starting to catch on a little bit more, definitely more so than the last 20 years, but I feel like people need to really evaluate their lifestyle, their nutrition, um, even some alternative methods, just being open to different ideas. So what is your take and your philosophy on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. So a while back, I created my own, I call it model of care. And it's kind of in this pyramid shape. So if you can remember the old food pyramid, it's going to
Yeah.
kind of look the same, but it's the model of care. So at the very bottom three, we have the fundamentals. So we have lifestyle, nutrition, and then supplements. And as we go up, we have medications and surgery at the very top.
Okay.
So you kind of travel up along the model of care. So jumping straight to medications and surgery, obviously that's not the optimal way we want to go. And at the very bottom, we work with people like the health coaches, the nutritionists, the traditional naturopaths. As we go up, we get more licensed care. So naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors. And then at the very top, we have the MDs and DOs, the traditional type of doctors. So I do agree. I mean, there's a place for all that. I've definitely sampled with some medications in the past and have even considered surgery if I really can't get this under control myself. I know that that's an option. But in the meantime, working on those fundamentals, the lifestyle, the nutrition, and sometimes the supplements, we have to start there. And I think a lot of people go wrong because they jump straight to medications and surgery without working on things like the nutrition or regulating the nervous system. So that's kind of my take on it. So I completely agree with where you were going with that.
One of the things I I do like to make clear to people also is if you are, so far, I'm just going to use thyroid as an example, but if you are somebody who is suffering significantly, sometimes I do also feel like you need to be on medication to get started while you're addressing the food and the lifestyle. And so, again, I think there is a place for medication in certain circumstances, but that doesn't mean that you go on the medication and then that's all you do. It means that that's kind of a tool that you're using while you're working on all of the layers underneath that have not that have been neglected, basically, that has gotten to you to this point. And so people, out there that are suffering, I, again, don't want to discourage medication. It's just not the end all be all. And so the gut health, I think, is such an important part. And that's why I wanted to talk to you. And I was so excited for you to come on the podcast, is because gut health, it's a buzzword, right? I feel like it's coming more into the mainstream. I feel like there's a lot of supplements being sold. Take this for your gut, take this. And so I just wanted to talk about some basic things with you so that people can understand the connection that your gut has, your microbiome, to your health and wellness. So what is your take, or could you describe to me or to us what you do with a client who's coming into your space looking for care?
Yeah, so a quick, I guess, basic intro. The microbiome is basically this collection of microbes, so bacteria, viruses, yeast, fungi, archaea, that collect in our gut, primarily the colon, the large intestine, but also in the small intestine and a tiny bit in the stomach too. And of course, our oral microbiome, our skin microbiome. So our whole body is pretty much made up of all these different microbes. And balance is shifted, there'll be a lot of issues, anything from weird symptoms to a full-on disease. And they're finding so many links with microbiome imbalance or even specific microbes to certain conditions. So, for example, diabetes, Parkinson's, those types of conditions are linked to microbiome imbalance. Is that the only thing? No, there's many components. It's never one thing, but the gut is a large part of it. So when someone comes to me with gut conditions or even symptoms outside of that, I like to do kind of a full on investigation with their symptoms, their health history, looking at previous labs, because most often things are missed in their labs. And it's not always the doctor's fault. It's just the system. It rushes them. They just don't have the time to really look at labs and learn about the individual. But I do kind of a investigation with those previous labs. And if we need to, we order some current functional labs. So functional labs are a little bit different in that they help us look for root causes and also not focused on what is the disease or the diagnosis here. What is going on in this individual right now? Is it optimal? Are things happening optimally? So we look at these functional ranges and we use things like stool tests to check for dysbiosis, gut inflammation, also some organic acid tests to see the metabolites that are being created in the body. Does that indicate mold toxicity, candida overgrowth, etc.? So, and not only the labs, because we can't just use those, we have to look at the individual too, their symptoms, what are their main concerns, how are they doing, who are they as an individual. So it's just a full-on comprehensive approach. And back to the microbiome, I mean, that's a huge part of it for sure. That's a huge part of what I do. So anything with digestive issues, we're definitely going to look at what's going on in the gut, with neurological issues, especially because of that gut-brain connection. At this moment, I am focused on the gut and somewhat the gut-brain connection, but over time, just with my neurological challenge, I think I'm going to be focused more so on brain health, but because that's really my passion. But the gut has so much to do with that anyway. So I think this was a great shift into maybe my future. Well, that's a side note anyway. So yeah, the microbiome, just as a recap, has a lot to do with the overall health of the body and even the skin microbiome. If you have skin issues, you want to look at what's going on topically, but also internally. Same with the scalp, same with bad breath. The microbes have a lot to do with our balance in general.
I couldn't agree more with everything that you're saying. And I've talked about on another episode where I talked about gut health, and my community knows I rave about stool testing and I rave about neurotransmitter testing because they they really paint such an amazing picture of things that are going on internally that is not painted for you when you just go to a traditional doctor. And
Yep.
with my girls, and most people who know me know, with my girls, it literally changed the trajectory of the way that we handled what was going on with each of them differently. And when you're talking about um, topically, my older daughter, went to college and, things went awry, which that happens. You always go through the ups and the downs and the dips and the whatever. And to see her skin clearing up now by addressing her liver and readdressing, not addressing, but readdressing and realigning her diet and her triggers, and just for her to remember and see the difference that it makes, it's truly just enlightening. And I feel like when we are in a place where we are suffering, and we're not feeling well and we're not feeling our best, and we go to a natural person, it can be overwhelming because it's new, right? It's something that, I mean, some of us are 40s and 50s and we've never been exposed to something like this. So it's a new way of thinking. And so I think it can be overwhelming for a lot of people. And that's one of the things when I work with people is I try to take the overwhelm out so that it's doable little chunks. And I feel like from what I know about you, you kind of are in a similar fashion, but I love that you do those testing because it helps people to understand where they are, where their inflammation markers might be, if they do have candida, if they do have, another disorder or bacteria overgrowth of some sort, that can be addressed also. So I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. What are because we've been talking a little bit about the gut and then the brain connection, but when you're starting out with somebody, what is your thoughts on um, dialing into nutrition a little bit when you're looking at like resetting someone's gut if they don't have anything, you know, outlandish going on,
Yeah.
obviously, but just a generalized person who would want to reset their gut health?
Yeah, and I do want to make it clear too that there's not one perfect diet for everyone. I don't have
Yes.
a specific gut health diet. I just have basic guidelines and then we
Mm-hmm.
kind of customize those to the individual, right? Because everyone has different sensitivities. Some might not have any, some might have a lot, so we kind of have to go off of that. But really, just as a basic foundation, we start with easy to digest foods. We want to give the gut a rest. We want to take things easy. So, for sensitive guts, or even just people who maybe aren't as sensitive, we still want things that are easily available, easily digested. So, those are things like cooked, digestible veggies. So, things like carrots, potatoes, yams, celery, parsnips, canned veggies, because they're a little easier to digest. Things like cruciferous, so your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, those are a little bit harder to break down. They might not be a problem for everyone, but they can be. So we want to make sure those veggies are really easily digested. Fruit as well. Fruit is just pretty easy to digest for most people. It's bioavailable, it's hydrating. Now, not everyone can handle all types of fruit. We have to customize that as well. Things like coconut milk or other plant milks, preferably without fillers like carrageenan, no sweeteners. If you want to try to incorporate dairy into your diet, opt for raw dairy if it's available. Unfortunately, it's not available everywhere. But raw dairy is different in that it's not basically messed with. So it has all the enzymes and probiotics that are necessary for digestion and all the other health benefits. Things that are more liquid, easier to break down. So smoothies, which have to be customized as well, broths, soups, white rice over brown rice, tofu, or if you can handle meat, preferably grass-fed, pasture-raised poultry. So those are some of the easier to digest foods. And we also want to support the gut lining too. We can do that with food first. There's also supplements available. So we want to kind of seal the gut lining, repair the mucosa, and that's anywhere from the esophagus, the stomach, small intestine, and large intestine, the whole way down. We want to seal that, support the mucosal barrier, prevent leaky gut. So we can do that with food, gelatin, bone broth, hydrolyzed collagen, which is technically a supplement, bananas, plantains, honey, aloe vera, inner fillet, not the whole leaf, that's more of a laxative, bone in meat and fish, bone marrow, those aren't as common, but they are supportive of the gut lining just because they have gelatin and collagen. Parsley too is very supportive for the gut lining. And then you have your herbal teas to kind of soothe things. So licorice, fennel, slippery elm, marshmallow root, chamomile. So those are some basic ways to kind of reduce inflammation, support the lining. And then lastly, we want to feed the microbiome. We do this with food first. Again, there's also supplements available. So some hot ones are polyphenols. Those are your reds, blues, purples. So your berries, pomegranate, red beets, cherries, etc. Cultured and fermented foods. Technically, they're kind of one and the same, but certain cultured foods are, it's just a different label. So there's cultured and fermented foods. There's non-dairy, dairy yogurt, probiotic carrots, kefir, miso, tempeh, pickled veggies, even sourdough bread. But of course, not everyone can handle gluten. So things always have to be customized. And then your prebiotics. So that's basically all types of fiber in your fruits and veggies. Some really good ones are bananas, artichoke, oats, beans, legumes, onions, apples. And then lastly, your butyric acid, which provides butyrate. This helps to kind of produce antioxidants for the microbiome, and it helps to reduce inflammation in the colon. So grass-fed butter and ghee, Parmesan cheese, raw dairy, and then you can also create butyrate from fiber. So kind of a mouthful there. Hopefully
No,
that all
that
made
is all
sense.
great. I just learned something new. I didn't know about butyrate, but I do eat grass-fed butter, so yay me. Um, what I absolutely 100% love about what you just said, whether it was a lot or a little, is that you use food for all of those things first, not just a
Yes.
prebiotic supplement, not just a probiotic supplement. And I think, again, in our world of creating things for people to buy and it being, the buzzwords, there are so many supplements out there that the supplements get overwhelming. And people
Yes.
forget that food has those things in it. So if you are eating a mostly healthy, balanced diet, all of the things that you just said would be part of that. And so that's where I
Yes.
think the confusion is because we come from a culture that is very driven by diet, by a pill, by the easy fix. And all the things you just said really are the easy fix. It's just eating things that fuel your body in a proper way. And again, people have different foods that are not for them. And that's the bio individual side of things. But I love your philosophy and your mindset towards using food first because I feel like that's missed a lot.
Yes.
Even when you go to functional people and integrative people, I've been to a lot myself, and as educated and the life that I live daily, there have been plenty where I've walked out and been like, what was all of that? Like that was a lot of
Right.
information. And now you want me on 20 supplements and what is that, what is that really doing? So I believe in small amounts of supplements and lots of healthy foods. Again, everybody's situation is different. Where you're coming from and starting is very different than somebody else. And so the ultimate goal for people should be to reduce all the pills really as much as possible and to get eating, a better lifestyle. So thank you for saying all that, because I think that needs to be heard
Yeah.
over and over and over, and food needs to be first. I love that. So in addition to food
Yes.
though, because food can ultimately help with a lot. I mean, it can repair our microbiome to a certain extent. It can heal us to a certain extent. It can provide minerals and nutritional, dense nutrition for us. I love the cooked versus the raw and that kind of stuff. But that's not the whole picture, right? I mean, that's part of the picture, but what are some other things? Because what's coming to mind for me is mindset. I think that's huge. I think, when we talk about lifestyle, movement is part of that package. So, what are some of your philosophies in addition to food to help heal the gut?
Yeah. So in my plans and even in my $13 gut guide, which I'll talk about later, I always have nutrition, lifestyle, and supplement, or rather, lifestyle first, nutrition and supplements. Because sometimes if we're eating healthy, taking supplements, but we're living in a toxic environment, that's not going to be optimal. So, as far as lifestyle, that's a huge category. So the main thing I work on with people with lifestyle is what they do around meal times, how they're breathing, and also just kind of regulating the nervous system. It's a handful, there's a lot to talk about, but just to keep it simple, I want to start with the mealtime habits because this is huge for gut health. So I have three main things that I recommend around mealtime, and they're not difficult at all. So I always recommend not drinking with meals. We've been ingrained to take a drink every time we take a bite. And of course, some people might have trouble swallowing. That's always a consideration. But generally, when we're piling down the liquids while we're eating, we're increasing the pressure of the stomach. So this is going to increase gas, bloating, indigestion. And we're also diluting our digestive juices. So our stomach acid, enzymes, bile, pancreatic enzymes. We're diluting all these things. So we're not going to be breaking down the food as well. It's going to sit there longer. It's going to ferment, putrefy, create gas, bloating, increase in volume. It's doing a lot of things that we don't realize. One of the biggest game changers for me, because I tend to have lower stomach acid and slower motility, which has improved, but not drinking with meals was a game changer for me. So I recommend not drinking 10 minutes before you eat and then stop. So stopping 10 minutes before you eat and waiting at least an hour after. Now we can modify the time frame depending on the person's lifestyle, but that's a general guideline. And secondly, chewing is so overlooked. Our stomach does not have teeth. It's just going to churn the food around, kind of bring it back and forth. But our chewing really helps to break down the food so the rest of the digestive tract has an easier time covering it with the digestive juices, breaking it down, absorbing. When we're just swallowing and inhaling our food, we're not going to digest properly. And later on, we're going to have gas, bloating, indigestion. And over time, it can even cause an imbalance in the microbiome, which is insane. It does a lot. And then lastly, breathing. I always recommend 3 deep belly breaths before you eat. So, and belly breathing all the time. This is something we need to really work on. A lot of us are shallow chest breathing. So we're kind of hyperventilating, not taking the time to calm down, regulate the nervous system. If any time is important, it's before a meal. So just taking 3 slow breaths. I like the 4-7-8. So inhale for 4 seconds, hold 7, exhale 8 seconds. You can find your own time frame there. 3 of those before you eat, just to slow down, regulate yourself. A lot of us are running around back and forth in between meetings, taking the kids to school, and then we eat and we have to rush. So slowing that down really optimizes our digestion. And just that helps us to produce our digestive juices better, increase motility, etc. So those 3 things, chewing 20 to 30 times, not drinking with meals, 3 breaths before you eat. Those are game-changing lifestyle
And who
recommendations.
can't do that, right? It doesn't cost any money. It literally doesn't take much time or
Right.
thought. So if people, don't know where to start, I think these are amazing three little tools that somebody can walk away with today to start healing the digestion that's happening in their body. I could not agree more. I'm not an avid not drinker with I don't know. I'm going to have to be more mindful and more present with what I do because I'm not sure if I'm just thinking, do I drink a lot when I'm eating or don't I? And I'm like, I don't know. So I'm going to be a little bit more curious the next couple of days
Hmm.
to see what I'm doing. And because I don't know, but I definitely, do try to be more present in my chewing because I do know that the beginning of the chewing creates the salvation, the glands to let enzymes come out and coat the food as it's going down and all of that. Um, and the
Yes.
breathing,
Yep.
breathing couldn't be more easy to do, and it couldn't be more beneficial in not just eating, but in everything in life. And one of the things I always often think about with breathing is like I don't know, 50 years ago, 20 years ago, some families still pray before they eat, but that time where people get quiet, they get centered, they're saying a prayer, whatever it is, or they're saying, if you're not a prayer type family, you can go around and say one good thing that's happened today. But it literally, the point is just to stop and get present. And while people are speaking or while somebody is saying a prayer, that is a good time to take those deep breaths, right? And just really stop the busyness. And so again, if you're not a praying type family, find something, whether they're conversational cards or something to just bring the intention to what it is you're actually doing, which is having a meal in relationship with other people. um, so those are great tips. So if you're not walking away
Yeah,
with
that's a
anything else
great point.
today, walk away with those three little tips because I think they're um, the shifts will be grand from the little tiny steps is the way I would like to look at that. Um,
Yes.
what is your feeling on motility? So people, I think, really are not aware of what happens. We all went to biology or whatever class it was in high school or college where it did show like when you swallow and it goes down your esophagus and it goes and you kind of see the actual transition of the food and going down. But motility, I think, is a problem for a lot of people, and they're not even aware that that's what the problem is. So, could you speak a little bit on motility, please?
Yeah, a
Thank you.
lot of things go wrong when motility gets impaired, whether that's it increases too much or slows down. For most people, it slows down. So constipation type, sometimes that can even cause diarrhea, where it's too quickly. Obviously, that's more diarrhea, malabsorption. But motility is important for healthy bowel movements, for absorption, for microbiome balance. It's just really important. And a lot of things can go wrong. And this is one of the main pillars that I address. And I talk about this more in detail in my gut guide as well, with the 4 steps to reduce gut dysfunction. But there are many types of digestive motility, all the way from esophageal motility to gastric emptying in the stomach to the migrating motor complex in the small intestine. And then in the large intestine or colon, of course, we have the bowel movements, peristalsis. When this doesn't work properly due to nervous system dysregulation, pre-existing microbes, things like Lyme disease, medications too can slow down motility. Even frequent snacking is actually not optimal for the small intestine motility specifically. Many other issues too can cause slow motility. And then on top of that, when we have slow motility, that causes even more issues. So things like SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, candidiasis. Um, it can even cause weight gain in some cases because those bacteria have more time to extract calories in the small intestine. Usually we see that with IMO, which is intestinal methanogen overgrowth. That's the methane type of SIBO. But basically, we don't want motility that's too slow or too fast. So, again, too slow, usually constipation, usually weight gain, low energy, things like that. When it's too fast, we have diarrhea, malabsorption, usually weight loss. So, we want to make sure that motility is healthy. And getting bowels moving is a huge important step for not only detox, but microbiome balance, liver support, and many other things. So, moral of the story, we have to have balanced motility in all areas of the gut, from the esophagus all the way down. And much of that starts in the nervous system.
Okay. If somebody was trying to figure out, I guess I don't know if I'm saying this right, but like what a good rate of motility would be. I have some thoughts around it, but I'm
Mhm.
just curious, since you're more into this, what is a recommendation you would give to somebody? Now, obviously, we know diarrhea. I mean, because that's you eat something and it runs right through you. So you're not absorbing pretty much anything from that meal, very little, if anything. But the constipation side, people get into routine, right? And maybe they only go to the bathroom once every 3 days, or maybe they go 3 times a day, and maybe they just go once a day. And so, what is the proper elimination, I guess? And how would somebody be able to, get curious about it to see where they're at without getting a doctor's, I don't even know how you would
Mhm.
test that, but
Yeah, right. So there's a lot of different, I guess, intervals for healthy bowel transit. There is
okay,
something known as the bowel transit test. So this is where we eat something that's usually not digestible. So corn, of course, that's a big one. So you
okay,
eat corn or quinoa, and there was one more that I can't remember, but there's a few types of undigestible foods that we can eat, and we'll record the time that we first eat those, and then we'll record the time when it first starts showing up in the stool. And sometimes they also recommend the last time it shows up in the stool. But generally, I like to record the first time you eat and then the first time it shows up in the stool. I've seen different intervals again. I've seen between 12 to 18 hours is a good time frame, and I've seen between 8 to 24, which is way too vast, but I would say generally within the 12 to 20 range is probably a healthy bowel movement.
okay,
And we can't just use that. We have to consider the individual, how often they go, how's their lifestyle, are they comfortable? Are the bowel movements healthy, informed? Are they satisfying and empty? So there's a lot to consider, and we can't just go by that. But that's a general free test you can do at home. So just eat something undigestible. Corn is usually the best one, and then record when you eat it. And then when you first see it in the stool and see how long it takes. That's generally a good time frame. So like 12 to 20 hours.
okay. So if you're someone who's curious, how your motility is, if you're somebody who feels like they're suffering, maybe in gut health, then maybe this is for you a first step to start to get curious and experiment, and before walking into somebody's office, so that you feel like you have a little bit of, ammunition, or I don't know, knowledge, I guess, as you're walking through. But I do feel like there is a considerable amount of people that have constipation, um, and and they tried lots of things and not a lot of things work. And so then I think testing would be, if there is that test, that would be an amazing test. What is that? How does that test work?
Yeah. So you mean the bowel transit test, the
Yes,
free one?
not the
Yeah.
one at home,
So,
but the not the one at home, but the one that you recommended we're talking about.
oh, yeah, that's the one at home, the bowel transit test, the free one that you can do at home by eating corn or something undigestible. And I do want to make it clear we don't digest fiber, so it's going to move through us quicker. Things like meat and fats, those can take 48 hours, even up to 72 hours to fully come out. So we use fiber because it comes out quicker. We You usually don't digest proteins and fats within 12 hours. That's too quick, but fiber is going to come out a lot quicker. But the way it works is we basically just time the time the fiber comes out. So and we see that range if it's within a healthy range. If we see maybe over 20 hours or over 24 hours, we know that motility is really slow and we're more constipation prone and we're more prone to dysbiosis, SIBO, gas, bloating. When we have, let's say, below 12 hours or even below 8, we know there's something definitely going on. We're not absorbing things, they're moving too quickly, more prone to diarrhea.
Okay, I thought you meant there was an actual a physical test, like if someone came to see you or work with you, there was a physical test in addition to
Oh,
that
no,
motility
unfortunately,
test.
no.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, perfect. All right, so we are walking away with three little tiny habits around mealtime. We're walking away with a little bit of an experiment you can do on your motility. Um, what are some of your, the next thing I wanted to address was like nervous system regulation. So what are some of your favorite tools um, that you find that work for most people? Obviously, we have the variation in the bio individual, but what works for most people that you love to share with people?
Yeah, definitely. So, starting with the nervous system, I think our breathing, like we talked about, is just really important. It helps us get into rest and digest mode rather than fight and flight all the time. So, always try to focus on belly breathing. That's just a very easy and basic thing. And getting away from chest breathing is really important. So, for example, if you place one hand on the chest, one hand on the belly, you want to make sure that the belly comes out on the inhale and comes back in on the exhale. The chest should not move at all. If that's the only thing moving, we have a problem and we need to fix that. But it's usually a very easy fix. So, and there's no shame. I was a shallow breather. Most of us have been at one point. It's just very common. We're all in this hyper vigilant mode in today's society. So work on your breathing before meals, but always throughout the day. Um, and then stimulating the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is a hot topic too in the gut health space and even the trauma space. It's a very long cranial nerve that extends all the way from the brainstem through the heart, lungs, spleen, and all of the digestive tract. So this is a very huge part of getting into rest and digest, working on secreting those juices, the motility that we just talked about. The vagus nerve is really important for many digestive processes. And how can we stimulate that? So it's actually very easy and also very free. There are fancy devices that they have now that stimulate the vagus nerve. You can do that, but we can also work on these very basic things. So they're going to sound silly, but gargling and gagging. So when you brush your teeth, if you gargle, stimulate the gag reflex, that's a great way to stimulate the vagus nerve. They actually say that a complete loss of your gag reflex is a sign of vagus nerve dysfunction. So that's
Well,
something to
then my
keep in
kids
mind.
definitely have a very strong
Humming.
one. My kids are
Oh,
the
good.
worst gag
Great.
reflexers ever, and they're always like, "I can't swallow a pill because I have gag reflex issues," and I'm like, "Okay, but hey, listen, at least their vagus nerve is
Okay.
kind of strong."
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and other ways, humming, singing, chanting, anything to kind of vibrate the throat area because the vagus nerve is on either side by the carotid artery. So vibrating this area will stimulate that. Cold immersion, a lot of people don't like that. I know it's not fun. I don't like it either. I do it just once in a while, but cold therapy, cold immersion, very helpful. You don't have to do it very long either. If you just take a nice warm shower and then do 3 rounds of like 10 seconds of cold, that's substantial enough. And make sure you breathe through that. That's a great way to train the nervous system. A lot of people don't realize, yes, the cold therapy's proven to support the immune system and the nervous system and everything, but it's actually putting us in a stress state because the cold is very stressful and traumatizing And by breathing through that, we train our nervous system to handle stress. So we create that resilience. So that's how that works. And then meditation is another great way. There's even vagus nerve reset videos. You can look those up on YouTube. There's many types of breath work, other modalities, even vagus nerve massages. There's a lot of ways.
Those are very interesting. I'll have to look up a few of those. I've really tried to do like cold showers. It is painful. But
Mhm.
yesterday we went into water that was cold, and I knew it was going to be uncomfortable, and I knew I was not going to love it. But me and my daughters and my husband, I'm like, well, two of them didn't care, but there's two of us that are wimps. And so I was like, okay, well, we're just going to go under and we're just going to breathe through it. And you are so correct, because I was really focused in, because normally I'd hold my breath, right? I would just plunge in and then I would hold my
Mhm.
breath until I could calm down. And so yesterday we did where we were more focused on like breathing. And it was interesting how differently the body calmed, because when you're holding your breath, obviously there's really nothing good about that, but breathing through it and actually um, manipulating the body, it was a pretty cool experience. We all
Yeah.
thought it was interesting, so thank you for bringing that up, because I think those are really good tools to have. And if you're somebody who's just getting started, even just like she said, just the massage and the swiping down of the vagus nerve, if you YouTube it, there's tons and tons of videos on very easy
Mhm.
ways of doing that in a quicker fashion. Um, okay, so we're kind of nearing the end, but before we do, there's I always like want to ask you if you have like maybe, I don't know, three, four, five products that you swear by that are your favorites and why you like them. I think people love to hear other people using something and then knowing why, um, kind of a recommendation or a referral or something like that. So, what is it that you, Riley, love to use for yourself, for your health and wellness?
For myself, okay, yeah, that's gonna be easier because I was for everyone else, that's so difficult because they're all
Yep,
so
no, just
different.
for
But
you. Yep.
uh, okay, so the biggest game changer for me personally was hydrochloric acid, HCl. So that helps to support and provide support for the stomach acid. Again, I'm usually a low secretor, so the stomach acid really just improved my motility, helped me break down food better, reduced bloating, gas, the feeling of things were sitting there. HCl really helped. It's not for everyone. We have certain conditions it's not optimal for, but HCl, love it. In fact, anything acidic really helps me, which is crazy, but I need to support more acids for myself. As far as other things, gas and bloating, I really like fennel tea specifically. I used to be very prone to gas and bloating, so the fennel would kind of reduce um, the term for those. It'll come back to me, but there's a specific term for these types. But they reduce spasms in the intestinal tract. They help with gas, bloating. So I love fennel. Licorice is kind of similar there. Peppermint, they all kind of do those same things. Um, I also like something called transfer factor, which is not something we usually hear of, but it's a very isolated, very tiny molecule that's extracted from colostrum. So it's an immune molecule, basically, and it really helps to balance the immune system. It's not going to stimulate unless it needs to, and it's not going to suppress unless it needs to. So, really, it brings things back into balance. So, transfer factor, if you've taken colostrum or immunoglobulins in the past, kind of the same thing there, but more specific and isolated. And then mucosal support, I love aloe vera. That does a lot of things, especially inner fillet, not the whole leaf. That's more of a laxative, but the inner is really supportive for gastritis, which I am prone to, very supportive of the gut lining in general and also the immune system. I think that was four, so I have one more. And then I love
Do you have a
Spores. So I love
non-supplement?
spore biotics. These are, I'm sorry.
No, keep going. You're fine.
Okay. And then the spores. So these are a strain of probiotics so these are the bacillus strains. And what's unique about them is they form this endospore shape. So they avoid stomach acid and bile, and they make it all the way to the colon where they're supposed to be. Because the problem with a lot of probiotics is that they don't survive the 20 to 30-foot journey all the way down there. Where the spores, they do, and they also help to increase other beneficial strains. They have a gentle die-off effect if there's undesirable strains in there. So I love spores. And then if we're mentioning specific brands, Microbiome Labs, they research all their products. I love their products. Again, food should be first, but when we use certain products, I just love that brand and what they do.
Very good. Um, just to mention to everybody listening, these are 4 or 5 things that fit Riley's body, her composition, her makeup, her deficiencies. And so if you're someone who is looking to possibly add a supplement, please make sure you're speaking with, somebody who is caring for you, and discussing these things with somebody before just jumping on a supplement, because sometimes if it's not right for you, it can do more harm than good, or it could do nothing and you're just flushing your money down the toilet and not going to have a difference, and then be more frustrated because you're using things that are not needed. So just always be mindful when you hear other people speaking about things for themselves. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you, but what I love about it is it gives you ammunition to go and research, and then present. If you do feel like it's something good for you, maybe present it to your functional person or your integrative person, or even your MD, and give yourself some education to have good questions to ask. Okay, one of the things, when I interrupted you, and I'm sorry about that, is there a
That's okay.
product that's non supplement related, like I really like, I'm trying to think of something I really love, but like I have a cup that I really love because the shape of it, the handle, the everything, it makes me want to drink more water. So is there some type of product, like a weighted blanket, or is there something that you love that's not like non-supplement maybe, that makes a difference for you? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Quite a few. I have so many funny tools in my house, but I think for gut health specifically, I just love the squatty potties or any type of
Okay.
stool under the toilet. It just helps to make the angle of elimination a lot easier, and you're not
Okay.
sitting there as long. It's just a great tool. I love the stools under the toilet.
Okay, that's awesome. So again, if you're somebody looking for something new to try, if you are someone who has some gut health issues, then the squatty potty might be something that you would want to give it a go. All right, so before we end, I ask all my people that I interview on my podcast for a couple of non-negotiables. So for you, for your days, to set up yourself the best that you can, to have, a calm day or a healthy day or a day just full of good wellness, what are some of your little habits or non-negotiables that you live by?
Hmm. Yeah, for many years I've done this, but the first thing in the morning, so after I brush my teeth and everything, the first thing I put in my system is water. So that's just a non-negotiable for me. Gotta hydrate, start the process of digestion, kind of soothe things. And if I don't, I feel off. I can't just eat something on an empty stomach. I need some water about 10 minutes, maybe an hour before I eat. So that's my number one. And then I must have a bowel movement. So I have to have at least one a day. Sometimes I'll have 2 or 3 a day, depending on what I eat or what I'm doing. But on the rare occasions that I don't have a bowel movement, let's say on vacation or something, my routine is off, I will try my best to get a bowel movement going. And I'll do something called the Malasana pose, which, if you look that up on Google or something. So Malasana, Malasana. That's a pose in yoga that kind of looks like the old caveman elimination pose. So if you're going
Okay.
out in the woods trying to have a bowel movement, that's what it looks like. And what I'll do is I'll hold that, I'll support myself on a couch or on a chair or a bed, and I'll just hold that for 10 to 15 minutes. For me, it works 99% of the time within that time frame. So it works pretty quickly. And if you're bored, you can even fiddle on your phone while you're holding that pose, whatever you want to do, or if you want to do some breath work. So that Malasana pose helps me have a bowel movement if I can't on my own, which is again very rare now. And then I also drink more too, make sure I watch what I'm eating, etc. And then lastly, the mealtime habits that we talked about. Those have become non-negotiable for me, for my tendency to be a little slower, low secretor. I have to chew, not drink with meals, and make sure I be present and breathe before I eat.
Those are great. I love these being your non-negotiables, but when you were just talking about the caveman pose or the Malasana, you said if I'm not having a bowel movement, which is rare these days. So for people who are listening that aren't healed yet or in the healing process, that might look very different for you. And so, I loved when she said now, because that means that she's been on a journey. It means that she's had trial and errors. It means that, she's lived life in between all of this. And she's just now gotten to, not just now, but she has now gotten to a point where these things are happening less and less for her. And so if you're someone who's struggling, again, like Riley said in the beginning, there is hope and there are different things, but it takes grit and it takes, the want and the willingness and, the desire to really get deep into things and start learning for yourself, because we know ourselves best. We are our best advocates. And so we have to find things and people that work for us and not just rely on the first person you run into and think they know all. Because ultimately we do know ourselves best. So Riley, I
Definitely.
thank you so much. This was so beneficial for me. I think my listeners are really going to enjoy it. In the show notes, I'm going to put Riley's link tree. It shows everything and where she is. She does have a podcast. She has a gut course. She has an ebook. She has Facebook and all the Instagram and all that kind of stuff. So if you found this episode to be one that really stands out to you, you can follow Riley for more information about where you can find her, but also share this episode with anybody that you think might benefit from it. Because again, sharing is caring, and the more we can help other people learn these things, the better we will be as a whole community. So again, thank you so much, Riley, for coming on. I appreciate it, and I look forward to hopefully having you on later in the future when you kind of start going down your brain health path, because that is the next big thing on the horizon, is the connection of the gut and the brain. And so knowing you just the little bit that I do, I know you're going to delve into that and really make a difference. So I'm excited to hear as you kind of step into that next portal or door of your growth. So thank you again for coming on, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you. I'm honored. Appreciate it.
I loved being here with you today. I hope that you got something from today's mini episode. I'd love to hear what resonated with you. Drop a comment below, and if you feel led to, download this episode and share it with someone that you love that needs to hear this message. To stay connected, check out my Instagram and Facebook pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. Join my newsletter, my blog, or even opt in for my free junk food cleanse sheet at my website, which is www.livelifebalancedwithrobin. And if you're looking to work one-on-one with someone on your health journey, check out my services page on my website too. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you are allowing me to be on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen.